Okay, so exciting. We're going to talk speaking, but let's do the countdown while I also get my Instagram going for live. Okay, here's a question for you. Are you tired of not earning anything when you give speaking? Let me start that all over again. Are you tired of not earning a dime when you're speaking? Well, today I have an expert here, Mari Geaseair, who's going to teach us and give us more than a few tips on why and how it is we can earn money, not only speaking, but in other ways as public speakers. You can generate revenue not only from those keynotes at conferences, but so much more, the areas and places that we haven't even thought of as public speaking. So today I introduced to you, I'm a little rusty. So let me start all over again. I'm starting all over again because those of you that are on Instagram, this is my first time on Insta going live through StreamYard. And so I'm recording this for the podcast. So I'm going to do a little cutting and pasting. So let me do the intro one more time. All right, here we go. Are you tired of not earning a dime through speaking? You want to grow your speaking career? Today, there are so many other ways that you can generate money on stage, in corporate America, at conferences, and so much more. And with other, I am just blowing it. All right, let's do this again. I'm going to be honest with those of you that are watching. We had our pre-party last night. So there's a lot of planning for Biz LifeCon. So things are are crazy busy over here at Second Act Women. All right, here we go again. I'm re-recording this part. Those of you watching on LinkedIn, isn't this fun? All right, listen, here we go again. Are you tired of not earning a dime or little to nothing in your speaking career, or you're a new speaker? Well, today you're going to learn and get 5 tools and a bonus from our expert in coaching speakers. She does executive leadership coaching. She will also help you get over job anxiety. But first, we're going to talk to Mari Geaseair. Hello, Mari. How are you today?
Delighted to be here with you.
Oh my gosh, I have taken your class. And it was, listen, as an alpha female, although, I probably shouldn't admit that, but those of you that know me, it's kind of true. You were really great at pushing me and other people who flew in for your boot camp on public speaking and giving us ways that we can not only approach our career in a way that can help us generate revenue in other ways, but also teaching us the presence on stage and all of that. But first and foremost, what I loved is you have to have something to say. If we're talking about some of those 5, again, you're going to give us a bonus tip, those 5 ways of generating income as a speaker. So first, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm really glad to be here with you, Barbara, and with all of the wonderful women and other folks that you support. What I do for people is I help people who have a real message get it out there in a way that resonates and that brings them back income. And I do that with helping speakers. I also do that with helping leaders who are trying to make that impact in their organization, and helping job seekers who know they have the goods, but somehow when it comes to that critical conversation, it gets a little harder.
Yes.
We're going to help you with those critical conversations on stage, in person, anytime you're ready to shine.
And I have to say, again, you were phenomenal in your boot camp, and I believe you have another coming up sometime this year. But we took, I think it was 4 hours, or I'm sorry, 4 weeks, 2 hours every week, and then it culminated with a full day session to get us to own our presence on stage. But also, again, we're going to tap into these tips. We really dove deep into this, and so let's start with the 5 ways to generate and or earn money as a public speaker. Number one is having something to say. Talk to us about what does that mean? Give us a little more about that.
Yes. These days, everybody and their hamster wants to be a speaker. You may have noticed there's a lot of people wanting to be speakers, but not everybody is thinking about their audience. When you have something to say, it is not about you. It's not about your story. It's not about your expertise. It's not about your knowledge. All of that absolutely matters, and we want it. But what we want first is, what is the gift you are going to give your audience? And when you really know who out there has got a pain or a problem or a confusion that you've got the gift that can answer, that's when you go from being somebody who has some talent speaking and we'll put them on the stage if we don't have anyone better, to, oh my gosh, organizers want this person because this person is solving their audience's problems.
Uh-oh.
Add something to that, Barbara?
You know what's funny? We just, your audio is cutting out.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Go say that again, my dear.
We're going to try this again. Having something to say means solving a problem for your audience, not telling your story and what you want to share in terms of your information, but really helping that audience, your story in service of their needs. And it's a slight difference, but it's the difference that makes organizers choose you and want to pay you the money, or organizers go, she's nice. If we don't have anyone better, we'll put her up there. And usually they have someone better.
Well, what I found interesting too, Mari, when you were talking to us during our boot camp, is you were also expressing to us that not only that, but on top of that, to book more gigs, we're also talking to those in the audience who are looking for our talents to solve that problem for their companies or their humans, wherever they may need our talents, right?
Absolutely. So almost 83% of the average speaker's business comes from referrals. And most of those referrals are in the audiences when you are speaking. So what you want to be doing is signaling the people you serve and the problems you solve even more than the topic of the day. You're going to do the topic of the day, but you're going to point out why they care, who that helps, what that solves. And if you do that really compellingly, people are going to walk out of that speech and they're going to tell somebody else. And this happens at every level. This happens if you have never spoken and you are talking for your local civics club, any of them, any of the clubs, right? Yeah. You're going to do that at a networking club. Even if you've never spoken, if you're really clear about the audience you are helping, somebody's going to go, oh my gosh, I work for, could you come in and do a lunch and learn on that? Or my cousin was talking about that in her business. Could you come in for her business and do that? So really owning who you serve and the problems you solve, instead of just saying, I want to get up there and motivate or inspire. We want you to motivate, inspire. Absolutely. Do it.
Yeah.
But do it in service of being very clear about what are the outcomes you can bring.
I love that. Yeah. Being in service of what the outcome that you're looking to bring. My question is, going back to the very top of what we were saying, that everybody wants to be a speaker and the importance of having something to say. When did this trend happen that all of a sudden, speaking back, at least in my college days, it was said that that was one of the things that close to death. That was the last thing people wanted to do, was give a speech. And today it's completely flipped. Why is it that it's the tides have turned and everybody wants to be a speaker and everybody wants to have and or has something to say? But again, they've got to, tighten up that messaging, as you said. How did this happen?
I think it's a confusion about being a celebrity versus being a server.
Oh,
So often we see the TED Talks, we see the Instagram Reels, we see the things, and we want to be an influencer, we want to be a celebrity. We feel like, oh, that would be cool, that would be interesting, that would make me feel powerful. And we're thinking a little bit about us instead of thinking about the people we're serving. And there's so many opportunities now where you can get out there and anybody can say, hey, I'm important. Well, yes, but are you impactful? Important versus impactful. We want to be impactful, but with the rise of all of the social media outlets and the conferences and the TED Talks, etc., all of which I love, you've got people that are thinking it might be easier than it is.
Yeah.
And thinking about themselves, because we live in a celebrity culture. I will say also recently, I've noticed that AI is not always doing speakers favors. AI can be a really interesting way to think about your content for social media, etc. But there are a lot of platforms out there that are like, you can use AI to do your PowerPoint presentation. You can use AI to come up with your speech topic that you're going to give to presenters. And what it does is it makes you just like everyone else. So it makes it seem like it's easier on the front end. Oh, I can just whip this out quickly. But it takes out your unique voice and the gift you're giving your unique audience. So it makes it harder in the long run. So I think the answer to your question is two things. We all want to be a celebrity, and we think it's gotten easier. In fact, there's more noise. It's gotten harder to stand out.
What? Because there's so many of us that wants to speak, which again goes back to your number one thing is you have to have something to say. And what is that solution that you're looking to solve for those audience members? Because you're right. We were talking AI just last night. Woo! And what's going to happen is everyone's going to sound like AI if they're not smart about their messaging. Because you can use it, but you need to have it be your tonality, your voice, what you truly stand for. And so it could be a way of, correct me if I'm wrong, of teeing up, your speech, but certainly don't use it to write the entire thing.
Yes. And in fact, I believe in the age of AI that's coming, or here, depending on who you're talking to, really great speakers and communicators will be the ones with the edge. Because we're going to be the ones that are used to developing deep, deep connections with other people and finding unique, unusual ways to bring that message across. And that's what people need right now. So it's not easy, but I encourage you, if you are out there and you want to speak and you feel that you've got people that you can serve and a message to share, double down on this. The other thing is we can deep fake a lot of things. We can deep fake a photo and a video, etc. But if somebody in a live room, you can't deep fake that. And so more and more organizations are coming to, we want to bring people in live and speak because we can trust that that's authentic.
So they want to bring, yes, okay, these are a lot of mic drop moments. Okay, I guess pun intended as well, since we are talking about speaking. So let's talk about number two, which you're saying is don't let ego get in the way of income. And what do you mean by that?
Yes. So there are two ways that ego really messes up the income for speakers. And when I'm talking about ego, I'm talking about focusing on the self first. So one of the ways ego messes up speakers is they think, I'm not ready. I don't have anything to say. I shouldn't go for that bigger gig. I should go for the smaller gig, because they're thinking about them, not their audience. If I say to myself, does that bigger gig, does that audience need what I have to say? And I'm thinking about them, not me, I may go for that. So that's one way the ego gets in the way. The other way ego gets in the way is people get a little bit of experience and then they say, well, I want to get X amount of dollars speaking fee, and if I don't get that, I'm not going to speak. And I'm all about getting X amount of dollars. I love it when speakers make money. Yes, let's go. But I love it when speakers make money. Sometimes you're getting that money from the organizer's speaker fee, and an organizer is handing you a check. Sometimes you're making that money a different way. An awful lot of speakers make the biggest amounts of money through, for example, corporate consulting that comes on the back end of their speaking.
Okay.
Roughly 18 to 20% of top speakers' income comes from what we call spin-off business. Maybe I do a speech and then you bring me in for a training. Maybe I do a speech and then I do consulting. Now, for some speakers, that number could be much bigger. Also, we live in a day where what they used to call back of the room sales, your book or whatever, is easier than ever to do.
Wow.
So I will frequently do a speech for an association or an organization, and I'm not getting a $10,000 or $20,000 fee to go into that organization. I'm getting a much smaller fee, nice, but much smaller, right? And yet I'll make 10 or 20,000 because I will offer people to come to some kind of webinar implementation lab where we just work on what we talked about on the speech. I don't do it as a webinar where I sell. I do it as a webinar where I could serve. But then those people are in my group now, and I can make offers for other things that I have, my own speaking, my own conferences, my own classes, my own digital products. I've got some digital products that exist and some that are on the burner that are coming out here in June. So you can use it to get other sales. I one time had a job where I made $75 for the speaking engagement. And within a year, that same job had made over $65,000 in coaching fees and consulting fees.
Wow.
And I knew going into that one where they didn't want to pay me much. And in fact, the organization had no money to pay me. The $75 came from donations that the people that were there made. And there were only like 10 people in the room. But I knew they were the right 10 people. I knew those 10 people were part of a very specific association in a very specific industry, like to have something to say, where I had a solution I knew they didn't know existed. And I knew if I could get 10 influencers in that industry to hear what I had to say, I was opening a door. So my thing about ego versus income is don't sell yourself short and think through your possibilities. I'm not saying do a gig if you really feel you're not going to get remunerated in any way. It's not going to be worth your time. But I'm saying think it through. I'll give you another example. A few years ago, I knew a speaker who was asked to speak at one of Oprah's events, and they didn't want to pay. And she got very, very upset that they didn't want to pay. And I understand that from an advocacy point of view.
Right.
Advocacy.
And it's Oprah, and they're thinking, well, Oprah has the money.
But my thought was, if Oprah calls me and says she doesn't want to pay, or her person, obviously, I'm not going to talk to her personally, I would say, fine, I will speak for free if you put it in the contract that I get 5 photos taken with her and a 20-sentence soundbite from her, or 20-word soundbite from her, right?
Right.
And I pick the best photo, I use that soundbite, and I use it for the next 10 years, and it opens doors. So the point is, think it through instead of just reacting, oh, this is a good gig because it makes a lot of money, or this is a bad gig because it doesn't make a lot of money. Conversely, I've been paid good money to do presentations where I walked into the room and went, I made a mistake here. This is not my audience. And I can I can get through it and try and give them some value today, and we'll all think it's okay, but we'll all think it's okay, and nothing ever will happen at the end.
Wow.
So you
Well,
want
one of the
to thinking about your profit path. Yes.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that, going back to the Oprah example, one of the things that I listened to a podcast on called The Wealthy Speaker. And one of the things that one of her guests said, and I know that you would agree with this, and probably offered this advice too, is, oh my gosh, I would hire a videographer and a photographer. I'd be speaking on that stage at Oprah's event and having them in the audience getting me on stage. Because obviously it's going to say have, in the backdrop, Oprah, so that alone is something that would be well worth speaking for free, to be on the stage and having great B-roll from being on that stage and having great photography of me being on that stage. That alone is going to increase my credibility, my personal brand, probably more add to the opportunity for more speaking gigs, because you've been invited by the queen herself to be on stage. So that's one of the things that I know I'm doing, as I am, if I can impart any advice on others, is when I'm, speaking and or moderating events, across the country to here, I'm going on Fiverr, and I'm hiring people to get me some photography if that event does not have B-roll that they can offer me, because that's worth it, right?
It is, and that's always part of your negotiation. Part of your negotiation is fees, but part of your negotiation is things like video, things like photos, access to their attendee list or email list. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't.
Aha.
Travel, if somebody wants to fly me out to the Greek islands, if anyone's out there, I would be happy to come speak to you if you take my travel fees.
And I'll be in your suitcase.
There are lots of ways. And so this is why I say don't get an ego. Also remember, organizers are under a lot of pressure. They are trying to deliver, often in too short of a period of time, to a lot of attendees, huge amounts of value. And sometimes they don't have control over their budget lines. But sometimes I only have so much in this bucket, but I have some in this bucket. I can only pay you so much in fees, but you know what? I can, give you access to our email list, or I do have a huge videography budget, and they can not only take live shots, but they can do a little one-on-one talking head interview for your reel or whatever. The point is to get creative and to see yourself as a partner to the organizer, not an opponent trying to make sure they see your worth.
Another thing that you have said to us before we touch on number 3 of 5, and then the bonus that you're offering, is to pick, I forgot what number, but pick a certain amount of events that you will do complimentary for the year, right?
Yes.
What's the strategy behind that?
And all of this depends on where you are in your speaking career. If you've never spoken to, anything more than 10 or 15 people, you need the practice. You need to get out there and you need to be speaking. If you do that a lot, then you don't. So what you want to do is you need to look at where you are in your career and identify, I usually do it by quarter, how many complimentary or how many low fee speeches will I do per quarter? And then what are the criteria? Because I know speakers who are making top dollar to speak, who will still do these not to grow their business because they don't need to grow their business, but as a giving back. But you really want to be clear on the criteria. Is this, I'm getting experience?
Yeah.
Is this, I'm opening doors by getting in front of the right people? Is this, I'm giving back to a community that matters to me? Or a nonprofit, something that I want to forward? You want to decide why you're doing it, what you want from it, what you can give through it. But I encourage you to have a certain number of those, because back to don't let your ego get in the way. A lot of times people will start second guessing themselves.
Yes.
And just taking anything that's offered instead of going, you know what? I've done enough of that for now. I don't need to do more.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus on the core of my business. or they're so focused on the core of their business that they forget, it might be time for me to give back to my community. So
Yeah.
make a plan, stick to your plan.
I like that. Make a plan and stick to it. Let's talk about number 3 is doing the industry work. And although that sounds like we should know to do that, that probably doesn't happen a lot of times because we get in it, and just start probably dialing for dollars, so to speak, with versus doing the research and getting our homework done on whatever industry it is that we want to speak to. So can you give us more about that? Do the industry homework?
Sure. There are two things. You want to know about the industry you're speaking to, and you want to know about the speaking industry also. So there's something called Speaker Flow that I recommend that you check out. They do an annual industry report that you can find trends. What topics are hot right now? What kinds of concerns are organizers reporting they're having with speakers? What are standard fees that are going on? A wealth of information. Also, sources like the National Speakers Association, you want to be following what they're doing because they can tell you a lot. There's so many pearls of wisdom that you can get by joining your local chapter or the national chapters, the conventions, paying attention to what's going on out there so that you don't look to organizers like you don't quite know what you're doing.
Yeah.
If an organizer says, can I have a copy of your one sheet, which is just a PDF with your topic and bio and pictures and things like that, you should be able to pick up that lingo and know what that means.
Yeah, true.
If people aren't really paying for your topic right now, but there is a topic area that is very hot and it turns out you could retitle or rethink the way you intro into your topic. I've known people who've made minor changes and hugely increased booking just by listening to, you know what, people are really interested in this area right now or less interested in that area right now. For example, calling yourself a motivational speaker is not hot with organizers right now.
Oh, is that right? What's the term now?
People want interactive and they want informative, right? They don't want motivational.
Oh, yes. Okay.
If I say Mari is a very motivational speaker who speaks on blah, 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 they are less interested than if I say Mari is a highly engaging, interactive speaker who speaks on blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
There are also tools that are happening in the industry that you may want to know about. There are tools that we can gather testimonials and referrals and ratings of how speech came off. Knowing what's going on there in the industry and using those tools just makes you seem like a safer bet to organizers. Right?
Well, it's funny you brought up tools because I was going to ask you that at the very end to name a few because you introduced us to a few of them that are very great tools and for free. You can use some of the tools and their capabilities for free that will kind of amp up your business and the knowledge of the survey taking and things. We'll talk about that tool at the very end. And I like what Jen just said. It's true. They're tired of the fluff. What she said, people are tired of all the fluff and no stuff. That's true.
I would like you to ask Jen, please type in the comments whether I have permission to use that phrase. Because
you can use that. That was good. Love it. Well, and so here's a question, because I myself, and I'm sure others are in this predicament where as I build my speaking career, I find it difficult right now to label the type of speaker I am. Mm-hmm. So I never did really care for the term motivational speaker. But then I had somebody say, well, I consider you inspirational speaker, but I also like the experiential. I like to deliver where you are walking away, note taking, and have experienced something fun when I'm on stage. And I'm sure that's how, most of us some of us are out there like to deliver their topics as well. And you said that it's important to do that. But what are some of the titles that
I think you want to again clarify what an organizer is thinking versus what you're thinking, because they may be different, or even what your audience may be thinking, because that may not be what an organizer is thinking. So an organizer is going to make a distinction, for example, between a keynote speaker and a trainer speaker. Now, I'm more of a trainer speaker. You can tell right now, because I'm like, do this, and here's a tool.
I think I'm that too.
A keynote speaker is usually someone who comes in and there is more of a story and less of a, not always, this is a very soft distinction. Do not take this as hard and fast, right? But usually a keynote speaker is here to give a story, here to give a concept, here to give some main points. And a trainer speaker is here to get into the nitty-gritties of the how-to.
Got it.
And depending, where it gets confusing is often you can have somebody who's really a trainer who is in a slot that they call the keynote slot. Just Monday, I was in, they called it the keynote slot, but then they immediately said, well, instead of making it 50 minutes, can you make it 2 hours? And can you give us some how-tos? I'm like, well, yeah, because that's what I do. So we're calling it a keynote, but what you really want me to do is come in and do a 2-hour training. I have no problem with that. Just knowing that your speakers are going to think about this, or your organizers are going to think about this a little bit different than if you're inspirational or motivational. Frankly, your organizers want you to always be inspirational no matter what you're doing. They all want you to be always interactive no matter what you're doing. That's sort of the baseline.
Okay. So you're either, I tussled between that. You're either a keynote or a trainer. Do corporations, conferences, and others, are they more apt to hire to open a conference, and the one who's getting paid the most on stage at the opening or to close a conference, are they traditionally the keynote, or can a trainer speaker open?
Well, they might be traditionally the keynote, but again, don't get confused with that in terms of, don't let your ego and your income get confused, right? Because sometimes it's not the opening speaker who walked away with the biggest dollars from that event.
Oh, okay.
Right? And I don't know a single keynoter out there who doesn't also do training. Most keynoters do training. Some trainers are better at keynotes than others. And I will say to this, I want to go into the next tip I have, which is huge, which is
let's do it.
To know your speaker community.
Yes, let's do it. Okay.
What I'm going to say to you is I have knowledge and experience from my experience, but I am not a 25-year veteran of the speaker community. And there are people out there who are, and I say I'm not a 25-year-old veteran of the speaker community, knowing full well that I've been paid to speak for 25 years, but I haven't identified as, I know what there is to know about this industry. I've just I speak, people pay me. And then over the last 7 years, I've said, yes, I'm really identifying with the industry. But there are veterans out there who for 30 years had done nothing but find out what's going on with this industry. And they can tell you every trend there is and why and where. And they can say, oh, yeah, that used to happen in the 70s, is probably due to come back. And you should find out about those people. One of them is Lois Kramer.
Lois Kramer.
We can put her name in comments. But also the speakers academies that are run through National Speakers Association. Those are things to check out, because some of these questions that you're asking can be nuanced by people who've been focusing on this for 20, 25, 30 years as their core focus. But also the other thing people don't realize is, if you want to be paid as a speaker, an awful lot of your gigs are going to come from other speakers. Because as a speaker, I know an organizer, and that organizer doesn't usually have one slot to fill. They usually have a lot of slots to fill. They're only going to use me once, maybe twice at a conference, but they're going to have other openings. Or they may use me. For example, just last week I had someone, well, we brought you in for our quarterly event, but we have several monthly events coming up. We don't want to bring you to those because we just had you. Who else can we bring to those quarterly events? Or to those monthly events? So get to know your speaker community, because they can help you with things like, should I write this in my contract or not? What are organizers asking for this or that? Hey, who needs somebody in my topic area? Speakers are always passing on gigs to people who are out in a different price range or a different region or a different topic area than they are. Because if we can help our organizers, if we can partner with them, instead of seeing ourselves as, hopefully I'm accepted by them or I have to negotiate with them, but see them as our partners and help them, and see other speakers as our partners and help them, then we can grow much, much faster.
So are there any speaker communities that you recommend, like in Facebook groups or those kinds of things, or LinkedIn communities?
One of my very so I do recommend you check out. Lois Kramer has a membership program that I recommend you check out. I really recommend being a member of the NSA and getting on the Facebook group for Power Women of the NSA. Obviously, if you happen to be female identifying.
Yeah.
But Power Women of the NSA on Facebook is a beautiful group. I'm always seeing them have each other's backs.
Wow.
Gigs are out there, but also advice like, how do I write this into a contract? What about this insurance? Anybody got any help for me on traveling in this particular state because I just ran into this thing? What kind of mic should I get for my home studio setup? Tons and tons of useful information. Also, you'll have to pardon me. I haven't had a lot of sleep and I just blanked on.
Oh, it's okay. We'll come back to it. Here's another question. Here's a girl. I just told you a moment ago, I was out late, but then also working on Biz LifeCon for tomorrow. So I get it. A lot of brain fog happening. But another question would be, we are being served, a lot of us that are online as speakers, and we're clicking on, this speaker ad or this speaker link on Insta or LinkedIn or Facebook. And of course, when you're clicking on those, then we're being retargeted with more and more and more of those classes that you can, learn to speak classes and all. And you jump in those. And I was just in one on Tuesday morning, and there was a wealth of knowledge learned, but then of course they're upselling you. So they're getting you this one was the speaker lab, I think it was something like that. And so then they want you to, I guess my question is, what do you say about, and do we invest in our own learning? Do we invest in not only people like you, because I highly say, invest in your classes that you offer, but what about those that we're seeing online? Should we invest in some of those that are part of the speaker community? But I don't know. I don't want to,
I think
it's trying hard to walk a fine line as I say this, because I don't want to hurt feelings of people who maybe.
It's like anything online. You need buyer beware and really pay attention. I would say take the free stuff and then take it with a grain of salt, right? And find people that you trust their authenticity. I would also say really see who they're connected with.
Connection.
There is a difference between a speaker who is, I don't care whether they're a member of the NSA this month or not, but they're aware of it, they're connected with it, they know those speakers, Power Women was one of the other groups that I just blanked on that I want to shout out to. There's a group, Power Women Speak. there are those groups where you want to see, well, are they really playing nicely with others? Or are they off on their own saying we're the only one that does it? If they're off on their own and not playing nicely with others, start being suspicious. Also, if they're making grandiose promises, start being suspicious. A few years ago now, and I want to be careful because I don't want to offend anyone, and I know this came from a good place in her heart, but it was a little misguided. I had somebody who I worked with on speaking skills who had some very interesting scientific technical knowledge, very unusual, on a TEDx talk. We did the TEDx talk and sort of helped her be more audience friendly because she had this very technical scientific stuff, right? TEDx talk went really great. And about 3 months later, I saw her online promoting herself as a speaker coach on helping you get on TEDx stages. And this was really not her level of expertise.
Oh.
Not
Okay.
yet. I know you feel like you've had a success, and that's great. I know you want to help people. But you could have found that out if you looked at her program, because if you looked into her program, none of her credentials, testimonials, connections, associations were in any kind of speaking community. She was just off on her own saying, I know this, but also promising, over promising. There are a lot of people out there saying, I can guarantee you I'll get you this or that, or that you'll make this or that in a year. That's nonsense, because they don't know you. They don't know how hard you're going to work. They don't know what topic you're speaking about. They don't know your level of skill, both in marketing and in speaking. They can't make a promise yet. So beware of promises and beware of lone wolves. And beyond that, check it out for yourself and go with people that resonate with you.
Well, and another thing, when you were sharing with us, and I've heard from others the same, that just because you're on a TEDx stage does not guarantee it. Suddenly, does not guarantee that your speaking career is going to skyrocket. Correct?
Absolutely.
It's nice to say, I'm guessing, but yeah.
For some people, absolutely. We all know the Brene Brown story, right?
Oh yeah, the Mel Robbins and
some people. But two things: you have to be a really great speaker with a story or an angle that truly resonates in an unserved area. When Brene Brown hit the market, people weren't talking about shame the way she was, right?
Yeah.
So that has to happen. But also, it's harder now than it was because, again, there's more noise. I'm not saying don't do a TEDx talk. Do it. It's great. But don't think, okay, I did my TEDx talk and now I'm going to get people calling me up asking to pay me $30,000 to open their conference.
Yeah.
This is a process, like any profession or any art. This is a process of love, service, and hard work. And you need to show up over time.
Yeah. That's interesting. There are so many TEDx stages that you could speak from now. I wonder if it's kind of what the Gap did to themselves about 10 years ago, was you could find a Gap on every corner, and then all of a sudden they're not special anymore. And so I wonder if in Old Navies and things, I wonder if that's happening, because I have seen, when I've viewed some TEDx talks, I'm thinking, oh, well, where is that? Then you Google it, it's a really tiny town, or a really, Manitou. I'm from Colorado Springs, and Manitou has a TEDx talk. So and I'm not bagging on it. It's great that it's offered in so many places, but I just wonder if the specialness, I know that's not a word, has been sort of diluted.
I think it's like anything else in the speaker industry. Do your homework. Do your homework. Watch videos from previous years. Find out about the audience in that area. Find out about who attends that event. Because there are events that may seem like sleeper events. They may not seem that special, that are perfect for you. And there are events that may seem like it's all the thing that aren't perfect for you. You've got to take the time to figure out what types of audiences tend to be in that room, What types of speakers tend to get chosen for that event? And how well does that resonate with me?
Okay. I didn't realize. So Jen here said, I love TEDx's compensation model. I didn't know that they pay. Do they pay speakers?
I don't believe that they do pay speakers usually.
Yeah, I
Not
didn't.
for TEDx. A TEDx is usually locally owned and they don't pay,
Right.
although Jen may have more knowledge
Yeah,
than I
Jen,
do.
can you share a little bit more about that? Let's talk about the number 5 in getting paid to speak is follow up. Follow up.
There's a really interesting statistic from Speaker Flow, which is one of those resources I think you should check out. And they reported, this is last year's report. This year's report has just come out. I haven't had time to read it. But from last year's report, they were saying that speakers who follow up with organizers that they have spoken to before quarterly, so 4 times a year, we're not talking a lot, tend to make $50,000 a year more than their counterparts.
What?
Now, it's sort of like what I was saying before about speakers know other speakers, organizers know other organizers. You, first of all, want to have good manners. So say thank you, follow up. But being in their awareness means there are other options that are going to come up. Oh, yeah, we did have her do the keynote last year. We don't want her to do the keynote this year, but maybe she'll do a breakout session. Or maybe my friend who's organizing this conference down the road or in a different city could use her for the same keynote. Or there are a million ways that this can happen. But follow up with your organizers. Be nice to them.
Okay.
Understand that their life is full and they're working under a lot of constraints. So don't badger them. But at least once a quarter, make sure you pop up in their world. And I usually like to do that again by doing your homework. If you understand the kind of conference they are putting on and the kinds of needs they have, you might be able to forward them a resource, an interesting statistic, an interesting article, an interesting, not you, a piece of content that they can put in their social media.
Yes.
But you do it very consciously of, hey, Barbara, I know you're doing Biz Life Con this weekend, and I know that women in their second act often struggle with showing up with interviews and presentations. I just read this really interesting article about women starting their presentations with a joke works for men but not for women, and how do older women bring their humor.
Well, who knew that?
Here we go.
Kind of funny.
Here's an interesting research piece for you, right?
Yeah.
And how the other older women, how do women of a second act? I personally like that I'm older than I was, but that's my language. But that might be my take on it, right? Here's the Harvard Business Review article. My take is, here are 3 quick tips, and it's literally a social media post that I can give you. And you as the organizer can put that out. Have I made your week easier? Yes, because we're always trying to do stuff, content. But also now I'm in your head.
Well, and I used to do that with my clients, and I still have a few marketing clients even. That's just been, to me, that's kind of common sense or really great client relations. And I did that when I was in radio sales. If ever, and in radio, you've got all kinds of industries you're dealing with, but I would catch an article or 2 here or there and would send to a client. So I think you're right. I think that we have to remind ourselves that they are clients. I did a follow-up with Western Union just yesterday. I literally did a follow-up to a goal setting and personal branding, 2 different workshops I did with them. And I gave them a bonus. And I think I may have gotten this idea from you. It could have been. I gave them a bonus session, which yesterday for 30 minutes, we brought the global community back. And that's great client relations to me, by offering that one freebie even, to a client. But again, just following up, like you said, is so key. It keeps you top of mind. And when they're in their organizer community or Meeting Planners International, and someone is looking for your talents, well, who's going to come to mind is you, the one who's kept the relationship going. Because it's not always about the money, as we've said at the beginning.
It's always about the relationships. The relationships will create the money.
Definitely. Let's talk about the bonus as we come into a close on how to get paid speaking. You have a bonus tip. What is that bonus tip?
Well, before we get to the bonus tip, I'm going to come back for just a second.
Yeah.
Because on the follow-up, there's that other tool we promised earlier. It really is part of follow-up, which is you want to follow up with organizers, but also audience members. There's a tool you want to check out called Talkadot, Talkadot.
Yes.
And this is a way that you can do a quick 4-question survey of your audience at the time of a speech. It's great follow-up for your organizers because they can see evidence of how much your audience loved you. But also people then have an option to opt in right away to your email list. And those individual members of the audience you can begin to follow up with.
Yeah.
And again, you can get gigs that way. So
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say just last week, I did a speech. I don't know why, but there was this woman in the audience. I caught her eye. There was something about her I liked. So I invited her up on stage to do a little example game with me. And I speak about presence and leadership and nervousness speaking. And so usually people do not want to play, but she came up on the stage and played with me. Well, it turns out in that Talkadot survey that she is an organizer for another organization, which I had no idea when I was just playing this game with her. But when I used the survey to call up and say, hi, it says in the survey that you wanted more information. She's like, well, I'm that woman. And let me tell you, gig, right?
Yeah.
I would have just fondly remembered her, but never had her information to follow up with her absent this particular tool.
So you introduced us to that at BizLifeCon, and I highly recommend Talkadot. And the free version has really great capabilities inside of it if there isn't a budget for it yet. However, I think when it comes to certain tools, it is great to budget for certain things that will really help boost your business. Let's before we do the bonus, go quickly say what number 1 through 5 tips to get paid are again. In brief, give the top 5 and then we'll hit on the bonus.
Have something to say. Make sure you're solving a problem for your audience. Think about income, not ego. Don't undersell yourself, but don't oversell yourself. There are a lot of different ways to make income from speaking. Give it a good think. Really do your industry homework. Know about the industry you're serving, know about the speaking industry itself, and make connections in the speaker industry, which is number 4, be part of a speaker community, and follow up with your organizers, follow up with your audience members, follow up with anyone who has decided they want to be part of your world.
Or you want to be a part of their world. And so the bonus tip, Mari, is, and then we'll have you say where people can find you.
Sure. So often I see people say, well, I'm not seeing any calls for speakers. And what they don't realize is most events don't put out calls for speakers.
Huh.
And also I'll see people say, well, I just saw such and such conference and I would have been perfect for them, but I didn't even know they existed. And they get depressed. Here's the trick. Keep an eye out on the conferences, either in the local area you're in or the area that you like to travel to. So you're going to check out your local visitors bureau or convention bureau. You're going to pay attention to the big hotels in the area, see what they're doing. You're going to Google the name of your area, associations, see what kind of conferences are out there, and do a little sleuthing on the internet. It's a great thing to do on a Friday afternoon with a cup of coffee and your laptop. If you find something that is happening this year or now or soon, do not get depressed that you didn't know about it and couldn't apply for it. Start creating a calendar for next year going back 4 to 5 months from the date of the conference, because frankly, if the Pet Owners Association, and I talk about using your pets for a healthier family, and the Pet Owners Association just had a conference, and I'm like, darn it. Well, if they had the conference this year in May, they probably have it most years in May. So if I go 4 or 5 months back, I know in January to send them an email saying, hey, I know the conference is coming up. Who's organizing it, and who do I talk to? And that way you're getting in front of those organizers at the time they're thinking about that conference. And you're not waiting for them to come looking for a speaker, either through people they know, or through the speakers directories, that kind of thing.
And you know what you just did? You just did what is recommended in an email when you're trying to get to the decision maker. And that is not doing a full-on introduction of who you are. It's literally, can I speak to, that's leading the conference, or who is the organizer? Don't bog the person down with, because I'm a motivational speaker. Don't say that. By the way, Janice, that's one of the things she said is motivational speakers is not the title for being a speaker any longer. But yeah, so you just literally said in a very quick way, gave a brief of what could be in your email to get to that decision maker, correct?
Yes. Relate, don't sell. I believe in selling when you know there's a problem.
Boom.
When you know there's a problem, then selling is just offering a solution. But you've got to create relationships and understand the problems first, or you're just noise.
You're just noise. And they may not even have time. They may think of that email as junk mail. They may not, there could be several things that happens that doesn't get you to your answer when you're doing your deep dive. Before we end, how many days a week or how many hours a week should we be spending on selling ourselves, so to speak, on trying to line up gigs?
It literally depends on the stage of your business, right?
If you've been beginning stage, let's say your beginning stage.
If you're in a beginning stage, you need to put some time in. So if you're a beginning stage and you can do it, I would say block out 4 hours a week. And I would alternate between skill building. I'm going to do 4 hours of skill building because there are a lot of skills that go into this.
Okay.
And 4 hours of outreach, research, marketing, whatever.
Okay.
And alternate it, right? So 8 hours a month, you're trying to do outreach. Obviously you can do more if you want, but if you do just that little bit, and the key is consistency.
Yeah.
Okay, I did my 4 hours of skill building last week. This week I'm going to start my 4 hours by doing follow-up. And then I'm going to do low-hanging fruit. Is there a speaker directory or something out there where I know there's a call for a proposal? I'll put that in. And then I'm going to do more deep dive research. Right? So you prioritize from the easiest to the hardest.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're doing that regularly, you're going to get a gig. And when you get a gig, you have more people to follow up with. And then you're going to get another gig. And then you're going to have more people to follow up with. This does not happen overnight, but if you're consistent and you're continuing to work on your skills and your message, so I started with have something to say. If you truly have something to say and you're consistent about building your skills and doing the marketing and the follow-up, it will happen.
It will happen.
Timeline. People who say you can do this in 30 days, don't trust them because nobody knows the timeline. Yeah. But we know the effort line. Put the effort in consistently, it'll happen.
I love it. Mari, where can they find you? And I think do you have another course coming up soon? Because I highly recommend it.
Well, I have. I do have things coming up. They aren't specifically on how to build your speaking business. I only do that once a year, and I do a very short version of it.
Ooh, I got lucky.
A lot of good information out there.
Right.
So right now, I would say go to Lois Kramer, go to the Speakers Association if you're building a speaking business. Now, there may be some of you who are watching this thinking about speaking as part of your career or because you're looking for a job. Those folks, I've got stuff coming up for. So I have I have 3 offerings. I'll just do them real quick and then I'll go.
Love it.
One, for the really people who are really ready to go the full yard in terms of make a huge career upgrade, I have a leadership presence 9-month intensive. So if you know you're stepping into a big role and you need that help and those skills to really lead an organization from the front, speaking, meetings, difficult conversations, we got that. And then I've got a short one for people who have job search anxiety to help you get ready for those interviews. And that is 2 days live in Denver and then some digital resources. And then there are folks out there who are like, yeah, Mari, I'd like to do the speaking thing, but I'm a little nervous. I've got a digital course coming up called Panic to Poise.
Oh, that's
all
good.
about getting over nerves and having that skill of calm, gravitas, grace under pressure. And you go to prismimpact.net. We will put links and comments.
Yes.
At Prism Impact, you can sign up to get on the wait list for Panic to Poise, which opens June 1st. And right away, you can get a free report and a little bonus lesson the minute you get on the wait list. So
that's great.
There's stuff out there for folks.
Yeah, and Mari, I do. I highly recommend you. I met you through Kate's Place over at Tara here in Denver, Colorado, and and I accosted you. Okay, not really. That's a horrible way to say that. I came up to you and said, "Can you speak at BizLifeCon last year?" And everyone, and since then, I've learned so much. We've had our keynote at BizLifeCon last year flew in, not only took the course that we took in January, February, March, but then also Julie flew in for the boot camp that ended it all. And so I highly recommend your services to anybody out there. And it's not just for women, it's for women, men, and they. You do really great work. And so I want to say thank you to you. And I will see you tomorrow at BizLifeCon, where you'll be, there live for our women, our over 100 women and they who are coming to experience the event, but they can learn more about you there live and in person. So I want to say thank you. And for those of you that were watching today, I say thank you for listening to the second act. Were you about to do this? Mari, I thought you were going to do the hand gesture. My friend who is hearing impaired has taught us, some things. So I thought you were saying thank you. with ASA. So yeah, thank you. And for you watching, we are here live every Thursday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And you can find this podcast on everywhere, including Apple. Now you get your podcast, and then I do this live on YouTube. So join and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I wish everyone a glorious day. And we hope to see you at BizLifeCon in the next 2 days. Thanks, everyone.